Heartwarming blind date reveals incredible truth. Single mom discovers her simple date is a bill. Sarah stared at herself in the mirror, her heart racing with a blend of anxiety and excitement. This wasn't just another night at the diner, tonight was her blind date. She touched the fabric of her second-hand dress, a vibrant red that hugged her in just the right places, its softness contrasting sharply with the chaos of her life. It reminded her of the moments she longed for: a laugh, a comforting embrace, someone to share the burdens with. What would it be like to feel cherished again, she wondered. She could almost hear Lily's giggle when explaining her excitement about Mama going out. But doubts crept in. What if he's not what I need? What if I'm just wasting time? Taking a deep breath, Sarah picked up her purse and left the house, each step heavier with trepidation. The diner was busy, a familiar kingdom of clattering dishes and sizzling fries. The warmth of the overhead lights felt like a cocoon, both comforting and stifling. She spotted him in a booth, John, a seemingly humble man with a genuine smile that flickered reassurance. As they settled in, Sarah expected small talk, maybe a few awkward silences, but instead found herself engrossed in the rhythm of conversation. Over milkshakes and burgers, they shared stories of sleepless nights and school lunches, the kind of tales that only single parents knew too well. They laughed, and for a moment, the burdens lifted. You ever feel like you're just on a treadmill, running but not getting anywhere? John asked, his voice laced with frustration. Sarah nodded, her heart sinking with recognition. They were both warriors in a battle against bills and judgments, fighting to piece together a life where their kids could thrive. What's your biggest struggle? He pressed gently, and as their eyes met, Sarah felt the weight of his concern. Honestly? Sometimes I think I'm just drowning, she confessed, a tightness forming in her chest. Every time I breathe easy, another bill pops up, and I'm stuck juggling it all. She felt a mix of shame and relief in admitting it aloud. The vulnerability bonded them. Before they could dive deeper into their realities, John looked at her with a mix of fear and hope. I've got my own problems, he said, glancing down. It hung heavy in the air as if a cloud passed over them. I'm trying to keep my daughter in a stable home, and you know how that goes. The rent, the groceries, it's all fees that never stop coming. The echo of his words seemed to resonate in her heart, a reminder that love sometimes needed to navigate around the costs of life. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the night deepened, the hope began to flicker like neon lights over the diner's entrance. Could two lost souls in the struggle really find solace? A moment of silence enveloped them, stretched and heavy like the weight of those unpaid bills. Sarah's thoughts raced, the thought of companionship began to feel tantalizingly close. Yet, could they truly lean on each other, or would their realities keep pushing them apart? The air thickened with their shared vulnerabilities, leaving her more uncertain than ever about what comes next. Sarah took a sip of her milkshake, trying to shake off the unease pooling in her stomach. John sat across from her, his eyes searching hers, where she knew he could see her worries. Maybe it was the promise of connection that had her heart racing, or the fear that such moments could slip away as quickly as they came. Do you think it gets easier? She said finally, breaking the silence. The question hung in the air, floating between them like a delicate thread. John's brow furrowed, and for a heartbeat, she could see the weight of his own battles reflected back. Sometimes I think it gets easier when I share it with someone else, he said, his voice quiet but steady. But then there are nights, like this one, where I wonder if it's just me against the world. Sarah bit her lip, feeling a connection stir deep within her, a longing to bridge the gap between them. She felt alive in the moment, the pain of their struggles mingling with the sweet thrill of opening up. It started as small exchanges, sharing their greatest fears, their dreams for their children, and the silent agony wrapped around their roles as single parents. For the first time in what felt like ages, the layers of guilt and worry began to peel away. "Lily has this playlist of songs that we dance to when she's feeling down," she admitted, a smile breaking through her anxious facade. "It's silly, I know. But that girl can dance like nobody's watching." John chuckled, his laugh warm, flooding the table. "I can picture it. What's her favorite song?" "Fight Song, by Rachel Platten. If there's ever a reminder to keep fighting, that's it for her. Sounds like she might just be the most resilient one in the family," he mused, admiration brightening his gaze. As they spoke of their children, the burdens they carried began to feel lighter. Each laugh, each shared memory, stitched a fragile fabric of understanding between them. But reality didn't allow them to forget why they were there. "I wish I could just take a break sometimes, you know." John's voice grew softer as he leaned forward. "But every time I do, I see the bills stacked on the table, the rent due, and it just feels impossible." "Isn't that the truth?" Sarah whispered back, a tug of sadness rising up again. Their realities weighed them down like an anchor, threatening to drag them under once more. Just as vulnerability poured freely between them, the moment shattered. The harsh ring of Sarah's phone broke the spell. She instinctively grabbed it, her chest tightening as she noticed Lily's name flashing on the screen. "Hey sweetheart." She answered, forcing a cheery tone into her voice. "What's up?" The sounds of Lily's voice came through, excitement mixed with a hint of worry. "Mom, there's something weird at school. And I really need you." An invisible knot tightened in Sarah's stomach as she exchanged quick glances with John. They both understood that life could turn on a dime, bringing a swirl of chaos just as hope began to blossom. "Okay, honey, I'm coming. Just give me a minute." As Sarah hung up, her heart raced again, not just with urgency, but because she could sense John's understanding without him saying a word. In that moment, she also felt a new flicker of hope igniting. Maybe this blind date wasn't a wasted evening after all. "Looks like we might have to hit pause on our heart-to-heart," Sarah said, regarding John with an apologetic smile. He nodded, his expression turning serious. "What if we don't let it end here? Can we meet again, to keep this conversation going?" Sarah's heart soared, and a spark of excitement flickered. Could this be the beginning of something more than just shared burdens? As she stood up to leave, her thoughts raced. John's question lingered, coloring the air between them. What could they still uncover, and how much further could they venture into understanding each other? She glanced back at him, their eyes locking for just a moment longer than necessary. "Definitely," she finally replied. But as she stepped away from the booth, she couldn't shake off the feeling that the answers they were both searching for might just lead down a different path than they had ever expected. Sarah's mind raced as she walked out of the diner, her heart still pounding from both the conversation she'd shared with John and the urgency of Lily's call. The kiss of the cool evening air wrapped around her, forcing her to focus. She had to be a mom now, not just a woman exploring new connections. But the taste of hope still lingered on her lips, mingling with the sweetness of her milkshake. Driving through the familiar streets felt different tonight. Streetlights flickered above, casting a warm glow on the roads that were once filled with mundane routines. Tonight, there was potential for something more. What could develop between her and John? It was a bright spark in the dark, a promise. But the worry about Lily's phone call loomed in the back of her mind like a shadow. As she pulled into the school parking lot, Sarah's pulse quickened. The building loomed ahead, darkened and still. What could possibly be wrong? Was it just a harmless incident, or something more pressing? Her mind spiraled into a whirlwind of possibilities. Rushing inside, she scanned the hallways until her eyes found Lily, sitting alone on a bench, her small frame hunched over. The sight instantly made Sarah's heart ache. She hurried over, her voice soft yet frantic. "Sweetheart, what happened?" Lily looked up, her big brown eyes shimmering with unshed tears. "Mom, it was just there was a rumor going around that someone saw a ghost. And, well, they freaked out, and now no one will even look at each other. Everyone's scared." Sarah stifled a laugh, wrapping her arms around Lily, drawing her in close. "A ghost? Really?" Lily nodded solemnly, and Sarah felt her heart break a little. It was just a silly story, but to her daughter, it was real. You know, even grown-ups can be a little silly sometimes. Don't let it get to you. Let us go home and dance it out to your playlist, okay? Lily smiled, the transformation warming Sarah's heart like a summer day. The sight of her daughter's smile faded the worries of the world for just a moment. "Can we add some ice cream?" she asked, and the momentary joy spread through Sarah. "Of course, anything for my dancing queen." They stepped out into the night together, their laughter echoing against the dimly lit parking lot. But as Sarah climbed into the car, a memory from earlier bubbled up. John's look as he had listened to her, shared his own fears and hopes. That connection was still there, raw and alive, waiting for her. Once home, they settled into their routine, a dance party in the living room, music blasting, and giggles flying freely. The worries of the world faded, in that bubble of joy, they belonged to each other. But as the final song faded and Lily yawned, ready for bed, the question of John lingered in the air. How could she cultivate that budding connection while being the mom Lily needed? Later, after tucking Lily in, Sarah sat alone in the dim living room. Her heart felt heavy with uncertainty. She wanted more. More connection. More understanding. But where did she want to go with John? Was it just emotional support or something deeper? Just as the questions churned in her mind, her phone rang again. This time, it was a text. John's name flickered across the screen, solidifying the promise of their reunion. "Hey, are you free this weekend? I'd love to continue our conversation." As Sarah read the message, anticipation rushed through her veins. Could she really step beyond her fears and let someone else in? She sat there, fingers hovering over the screen. What would she say? Would she be brave enough to respond with an openness she hadn't known was possible? Definitely, she typed back, sending the words into the universe. And for the first time in what felt like forever, she smiled. But beyond the thrill of connection loomed a question: what if venturing into this new relationship meant facing parts of herself she wasn't ready to confront? As she lay down, uncertainty coiled in her chest alongside the blooming excitement. What challenges awaited her on this new path? How could love possibly transform their lives? As the weekend approached, Sarah found herself trapped in a mix of excitement and anxiety. Each tick of the clock seemed to amplify the anticipation in her chest. She was nervous not just about meeting John again but also about the things she'd hidden from herself for so long. It had been years since she'd dated, let alone considered letting someone into her daughter's life. Saturday arrived, bathed in sunlight and possibility. After getting Lily up and ready for a day filled with fun, Sarah's mind drifted back to the date. She had chosen a cozy cafe downtown, a place that felt warm and inviting, with the kind of bright colors that made you forget your worries, if only for a moment. But all she felt was the weight of her decisions hovering in the air. The day passed quickly. Building castles out of blocks with Lily, they giggled over sticky fingers and ice cream dripping from cones. Yet, a part of Sarah was mentally preparing herself for John. Was she ready to leap into what could become a significant part of her life? As evening descended, her heart raced anew. She arrived at the cafe, the smell of fresh coffee greeting her like an old friend. The atmosphere was vibrant, filled with soft chatter and laughter, and she finally spotted John across the room, waving at her with a smile that sent butterflies fluttering in her stomach. When he stood to greet her, she noticed the way his eyes lit up. "You made it!" he exclaimed, genuine happiness spilling from his words. Sarah felt a blush creeping along her cheeks. "I wouldn't miss it," she said, feeling lighter. They settled into a small table tucked in the corner. The conversation flowed effortlessly about everything and nothing, all at once: favorite books, childhood memories, and even silly ghost stories Lily had shared. With every laugh, Sarah felt the weight of her earlier worries begin to lift. This felt good. But just as Sarah began to lose herself in the moment, the tone shifted slightly when John asked, "So, how is dating as a single mom?" She felt her heart sink. It was a question she had been dreading. "Honestly? It's tricky," she managed, a mix of honesty and hesitation in her voice. "I don't want to screw up Lily's life by introducing someone who's not right for us." John nodded, understanding in his expression. "I get that. I admire you for being so thoughtful." The sincerity in his tone made her relax. But it also opened up a moment of vulnerability she feared addressing. What if he wasn't just looking for a casual connection? "Do you think you'd be okay with, eventually meeting her?" Sarah breathed, plunging into the unknown. "Absolutely," he said, conviction tightening his features. "Family matters to me, too." The gravity of his words resonated within her. There was hope, but also fear that pulling John into their little world might bring complications she wasn't ready to handle. Just when things began to feel positive, a loud crash echoed through the cafe as a stack of dishes tumbled to the floor, shattering the moment. Everyone turned to stare. Laughter and murmurs flooded the room, cutting through the tension. Sarah looked at John, and their eyes met, understanding dancing between them. "You all right?" he asked, the concern in his voice softening her worries. "Just getting lost in thought, I guess." She chuckled, managing to settle her racing heart. As the evening continued, a warmth spread between them, hints of something deeper blooming in the space filled with casual conversation and laughter. It felt easy, and for the first time, she allowed herself to enjoy the possibility of what they could become. But with each smile, the unspoken concern lingered in her mind, a shadow looming, waiting to reshape this newfound connection. "Sarah, there is something I need to share," John started, his voice suddenly serious. Her stomach tightened. What could this be? Would it change everything she had just begun to feel? And then the cafe doors swung open, letting in a cool gust of evening air, leaving Sarah wondering what this moment might hold for them both. What did he really want to tell her? The moment hung thick in the air, anticipation swirling between Sarah and John like the steam rising from their coffees. She could see a change in his posture, the way he leaned in slightly, pulling her closer into his private world. The cafe buzzed with life around them, but in that moment, they felt like they were the only two people in the room. So, the thing is," John hesitated, his brow furrowed slightly. "I didn't want to bring it up too soon," but he paused again, and Sarah could feel her heart pace quicken. What could possibly be so urgent that he needed to filter his words? "Just say it," she urged, trying to keep her tone light, though her insides were churning. You can tell me anything." He smiled, albeit slightly strained, and nodded. "I really like you, Sarah. I mean, more than like you. But I also want to be honest about where I am in my life right now." His words settled around her, warm yet terrifying. "What do you mean?" she asked, voice steady despite the quickening pulse in her neck. "I'm going through some changes myself." He stared down at the table, fiddling with the edge of his napkin. "I just got out of a long-term relationship. It's complicated. I don't want you to think I'm just after something casual. I'm not. But I also don't want to throw you into something deep when I'm still." He stopped short as he took a breath, locking eyes with her again. That moment. It was genuine. Vulnerability shared. "Sarah," he continued softly, "I'm here to explore this connection, but I want you to know I'm not as stable as I'd like to be." She nodded, absorbing this realization, fighting against the familiar instincts urging her to retreat from the prospect of heartbreak. This was a delicate thread unraveling in front of her. She couldn't slam this door shut while still feeling the warmth of potential between them. "That's fair," Sarah finally said, her voice hovering between relief and concern. "I get it. We're both navigating uncharted territory here. There was a flicker of hope mixed with caution in her stance. But I still want to take my time. Exactly, John replied, a faint smile returning to his lips. It was as if a weight had been lifted. Their shared understanding provided a new kind of intimacy, something raw and real. Yet shadows still loomed in her mind. Just then, laughter erupted from a nearby table, cutting through their moment. It drew Sarah's attention momentarily, a reminder of the world outside their bubble. She loved this warmth, yet a small part of her questioned whether she was ready to expose herself. Are you okay with that? Taking it slow? John asked, tilting his head slightly, a hopeful glint in his eyes. Yeah. I think I am. A cool breeze brushed through the cafe as the doors swung open again, a stark contrast to the warmth of their conversation. This newfound honesty left her both exhilarated and anxious. What if this connection could grow into something beautiful? But how would they navigate it safely? Just then, the cafe lights flickered, and a sudden hush fell over the crowd, eyes turning towards Sarah and John. She felt a swell of pressure, as if the universe was watching their moment unfold, waiting for a pivotal revelation. Hey, I've got an idea, John said, breaking the silence with a playful glint. Why don't we go for a walk after this? Get a little fresh air, maybe grab some pastries to go. Pastries sound great, Sarah replied, her heart fluttering at the idea. But even as she agreed, another thought crept into her mind: what if this was merely a fleeting moment? The look in John's eyes promised more, yet they both walked a tightrope between hope and the unknown, every step uncertain and exhilarating. As they finished their drinks and gathered themselves to leave, Sarah took a deep breath. They had opened the door to something meaningful, but now it was time to see where it would lead. Nervous anticipation swirled within her. Little did she know, this walk would unveil even more than either of them had bargained for: past shadows and present hopes intertwining in unexpected ways. What other truths awaited them beyond the cafe walls? As they stepped outside the cafe, the rush of fresh air enveloped Sarah like a hug. The streets bustled with cheerful noise, laughter, snippets of conversations, and the faint sound of music wafting from a nearby vendor. Sunlight poured through the trees, dappling the path ahead, and Sarah felt her heart lift, even as the clouds of uncertainty shadowed her mind. John's presence next to her was undeniable. He walked at a leisurely pace, his hands tucked in his pockets as he glanced sideways at her, his expression open and inviting. So, do you have a favorite spot around here? He asked, breaking the comfortable silence. Actually, yes. There's a park not far from here, Sarah replied, her excitement peeking through her initial reservations. It has this big pond and a few benches. We can sit and relax for a bit. That sounds perfect, John said, and she caught a hint of relief in his voice. I could use some calm after the whirlwind back there. They strolled a few blocks, talking about everything and nothing, their laughter intertwining with the sounds of the city. Still, the undercurrent of their earlier conversation hung between them, the complexity of emotions and the careful honesty they were trying to navigate. As they entered the park, the atmosphere changed. The noise faded to a gentle hum, replaced by the rustling of leaves and the occasional chirp of birds. Sarah led John to a bench by the pond, the water shimmering under the afternoon sun. It was a moment she loved, one that felt timeless. But as she settled onto the bench, a weight crept back into her chest, thoughts flickering between her excitement and the caution she needed to maintain. Hey, John said softly, his voice breaking through her spiraling thoughts. You okay? Yeah, just thinking, she admitted, glancing out at the pond. About us, I guess. This feels nice, but I want to be real about where we both stand. I know, he replied, sincerity etched in his features. I appreciate you being honest. It's refreshing. Sarah nodded, hoping he felt the same spark she did. Yet, in the back of her mind, she couldn't shake the fear of past heartaches. What if this was just another emotional detour? She had worked hard to hold herself together, especially being a single mom. Let me tell you something, she began, her voice trembling slightly. When I first got out of my last relationship, I was scared. Scared of letting someone in, scared of getting hurt again, scared because I've got someone else to think about now. John's gaze softened as she spoke, and she could see the wheels turning in his mind. You mean your son? He asked gently. Yeah. Leo is everything to me. I want him to have stability, you know. It's not just about me anymore. Her heart raced, wondering if she had shared too much too soon. I get it, John said, leaning closer, his eyes serious. I respect that. And I admire you for being such a caring mom. The sincerity in his tone warmed her. They lingered in silence, with only the soft lilting of the wind surrounding them. But as her heart began to settle, life had a way of throwing surprises. Suddenly, a loud commotion erupted from the other side of the pond, drawing their attention. A group of children were playing, one of them tripping and falling, resulting in tears and panic. Sarah watched instinctively, her heart clenching at the sound. Just as she went to reassure John that it was okay, she noticed a familiar figure approaching the group just beyond the chaos. Her pulse quickened. It was her ex, speaking sharply to one of the kids and scanning the crowd, his eyes landing on her. The color drained from her face as he started striding toward them, and she felt dread settle in the pit of her stomach. Sarah John's voice gently pulled her back, but the warmth of the moment had slipped away, replaced by a rush of anxiety. Her past was crashing in, and she had no idea how John would handle this sudden twist. What would this encounter mean for them? Would they be able to withstand the storm? The air felt electric, charged with uncertainty as Sarah's ex approached. She could feel John's eyes on her, his brows slightly furrowed, concern evident in his expression. Her heart raced, pounding in her ears like a warning bell. Stay cool, she whispered to herself, though inside, a tempest brewed. She racked her mind for how to navigate this moment without adding more chaos to already tangled emotions. Are you okay? John asked, his voice barely above the cacophony of children still crying and laughing. He leaned closer, searching her gaze for answers she wasn't sure she had. Just, give me a minute, she replied, forcing a smile that felt like stretching rubber band tight and ready to snap. The world around her blurred, she couldn't focus on the peaceful park or the rippling pond when all she could see was that approaching figure. Sarah. Her ex called out, his tone strained yet also possessive. A part of her recoiled at the sound. It was a name he used when he wanted control, a reminder of the tension that had once defined their relationship. Hey, she called back, trying to sound calm, though her voice trembled just a bit. In the back of her mind, worries spun. Would John stand by her? Would he flee? Would this crush the fragile thing they were building together? Are you all right? He asked the child, who still lay on the ground, wiping tears. But his eyes remained fixed on Sarah as he closed the distance between them. Just then, John reached for her hand, intertwining his fingers with hers, a silent promise of support. She felt the warmth of his grip and looked up to him, finding solace there. You're not alone, he seemed to say without words. Good to see you, Sarah, her ex said, feigning casual as he finally reached them, a fake smile plastered on his face. Looks like you've moved on, huh? His eyes flickered to John, and the underlying challenge hung thick in the air. Yeah, kind of, Sarah replied, willing herself to remain composed. She took a deep breath, trying to find her footing. Just enjoying a day at the park. Looks like things are pretty serious for you. Must be nice to have someone else to handle the drama, he said, his words heavy with condescension. John's grip tightened for a moment. I'm right here, he said firmly, meeting her ex's gaze directly. Whatever past you have with Sarah, it doesn't involve me. The sharpness of John's tone surprised her. She appreciated it, yet it also made her nervous. This was new territory, and she could feel the tension tightening between the three of them. Wow, defending her already. Her ex smirked, a bitter laugh escaping his lips, and it hit Sarah like a punch. You don't know her like I do. There was a challenge beneath those words that sent a chill down her spine. But John didn't back down. I don't need to know your history with her, he said, voice calm but steely. What's important is the here and now. Sarah is more than her past. The crickets of doubt swirled in her chest, but she felt something unexpected, a rush of pride for John's defense of her. He didn't hesitate, didn't falter. He was standing up for her, and that was more than she had dared hope. Sarah. Her ex turned his attention solely to her, and the tone shifted. We need to talk about Leo. A knot formed in her stomach. Leo, her sweet little boy, who shouldn't he have to be dragged into this mess? Panic flooded her. How would John react? What would her ex say? Would this forever alter the tentative connection she'd been building with John? Time seemed to stand still as she held her breath, waiting for the next word to spill from his lips. This is far from over, she thought, unsure of how to navigate the storm ahead. Would they withstand it? Or would everything come crashing down around them? Leo's name hung in the air, heavy and unsettling. Sarah clenched her jaw, casting a quick glance at John. He had gone tense, his brows knitting together in confusion. I don't think this is the right time, she stammered, her heart racing faster than she could breathe. The sun was shining bright above them, yet it felt as if dark clouds suddenly swirled in her mind, clouding her thoughts. Sarah, we can't keep dancing around this. Her ex's tone was almost desperate, as if he was trying to pull her back into a memory she wished to forget. Leo needs to know what's going on. What's going on is between you and me, Sarah said, her voice rising slightly, trying to reclaim some form of control. Leo's just a kid. He shouldn't be part of this. Just a kid. He laughed, but there was no humor in it, only bitterness. As if that makes it any easier for him to understand why you moved on so quickly. John's grip around her hand tightened, grounding her. She leaned into him, clinging to the strength radiating from his presence. He was here, standing beside her, but the urgency of her ex's words threatened to unravel everything they had worked for. I haven't moved on so quickly, Sarah said, biting her lip to stop her voice from shaking. I'm just trying to make a life for Leo, that's all. And this is complicated. Complicated, her ex echoed, his voice sharp, is a nice way to say you're avoiding your responsibilities as a mother. You can't just pretend everything is fine while leaving me out of the conversation. In that moment, tears stung Sarah's eyes. She didn't want to fight. They'd been doing so well lately, making tentative steps towards healing. But past wounds were flaring up, and she felt the need to defend herself not just to her ex, but in front of John too. Leo doesn't have to know everything. You don't get to dictate how I parent him. We can discuss this without turning it into a battlefield, she said, fierce but trembling. A tense silence hung like a heavy fog. In that quiet, she could sense John's unwavering support, yet insecurities bubbled within her. Her ex studied her, his expression revealing nothing and everything. I want to be part of Leo's life in a meaningful way. You have to let me in, Sarah. John took a step forward, his voice steady. You might have a right to be involved, but you also need to remember that Sarah is not bound by your past decisions. This is about Leo, yes. But it's also about Sarah, and what's best for them both. You're not doing her any favors by stirring up drama. Feeling John's resolve beside her gave Sarah strength. But there was still that gnawing fear, would it be enough to face whatever her ex threw at them next? Could John really understand the depth of her struggle? Let's talk tomorrow, her ex suggested, a disconcerting calm settling over him. We need to find the right path for Leo. He deserves that. Sure, Sarah said, her throat dry. Let me talk to him, first. As her ex turned to leave, she felt a shift in the air, and the tension that surrounded them began to dissipate, but only slightly. The looming shadow of his presence still packed an emotional weight that left her reeling. "Are you okay?" John asked gently, his voice concerned but soft. "Yeah, I think so," she responded, though her voice lacked conviction. I mean, she took a deep breath, giving him a half-hearted smile. "Well, it'll take time, I guess. Whatever happens, we'll figure it out together," he assured her, brushing his thumb over her fingers in a soothing gesture. But deep down, Sarah couldn't shake the question. Was their growing bond strong enough to endure the chaos her ex might bring into their lives? The uncertainty loomed, and for the first time, she wondered what would happen if she had to make a choice between her past and a future she desperately wanted. Tomorrow could change everything, she thought, the weight of that realization settling heavily on her chest. The morning sun peeked through the curtains like a timid child, casting soft shadows in the kitchen where Sarah sat, coffee steaming in front of her. She could feel the weight of the day pressing down on her shoulders. Tomorrow loomed like a storm cloud, and her mind raced with scenarios. What would she say to her ex when they met? How would she explain her feelings to Leo? "Mom." Leo's voice broke through her thoughts, a sweet yet innocent sound that filled the room with warmth. He was running a finger along the countertop, glancing up at her with those wide, curious eyes. There was a sparkle of mischief in them that was so entirely him. "What's up?" "Not much, buddy," she replied with a smile that felt forced but necessary. She wanted him to feel at ease, to know that despite the tension in her heart, everything always returned to him. "What about you? Ready for school?" He nodded, his smile brightening the room. "I can't wait. We're doing that science project today. Can I have a cookie in my lunch?" "Just one," she laughed, standing up to reach for the cookie jar, feeling the burden in her chest lift ever so slightly at the sound of his giggles. "How about two?" Leo asked, pouting playfully. "Two, huh?" She teased, shaking her head. "All right, two it is, but then you have to tell me all about the project when you get home." "Deal." "Deal." As they prepared for the day, Leo's chatter about his friends and school activities painted a bright image that slowly soothed Sarah's worries. But somewhere beneath the surface, that dark cloud of what lay ahead continued to loom. After dropping Leo off at school, Sarah returned home, and her heart sank into her stomach as she faced the list of things to tackle that day. She needed to speak to John, but that conversation felt just out of reach. She picked up her phone, scrolling through messages, looking for the right words, but nothing seemed suitable. The day dragged on as she cleaned, cooked, and distracted herself with chores. Each task was a temporary relief, but as evening approached, the unease returned, settling down heavy on her heart. When John finally texted to check on her, she felt a mix of relief and apprehension. "Hey, thinking of you. Want to grab dinner together? Just the two of us." Her fingers hovered over the screen. Dinner meant intimacy, and right now, she felt raw and exposed. Could she really allow herself to lean on him? Isn't that what she had always wanted? To build something real? "Yeah, I'd like that," she finally typed, her heart beating a little faster. When they met at their usual spot, there was a different energy that enveloped them. Maybe it was the hint of urgency in the air, or the desperate need both felt to find solace in each other. Conversation flowed until it didn't. "I can tell something's on your mind," John finally said, concern crinkling his brow as he leaned in, his eyes searching hers. I had a rough day," she admitted, feeling the walls of her heart cracking just a bit. "There's a lot happening, and I don't know how to face it." John reached across the table, his hand covering hers. "You can talk to me, Sarah. Whatever it is, I'm here." Tears pricked at her eyes, and she blinked them away fiercely. This was her safe space, but could she share the fear that bound her? The very same fear that kept her mind racing at night, wondering about the future she wanted but felt was slipping through her fingers. Just as she pondered how to tell him everything, her phone buzzed on the table, a reminder for tomorrow's meeting with her ex. The vivid anxiety roared back to life, suffocating her for just a moment. "I have to tell you something," she started, but just as the words hung on her lips, the tension in the air shifted. They were interrupted by a message on her phone. "Sarah, you need to see this," a friend had sent her. Her heart raced. What could it possibly be? Her world tilted again, as the inevitable uncertainty of the next moment grabbed at her gut, pulling her into the unknown of tomorrow. What was waiting for her in that message? Would it bring clarity, or would it add to the chaos? Each thought raced through her mind like a wild river, crashing into the rocks of her doubt. The message flashed on her screen, and she took a deep breath, ready for anything. Swiping to open it, her heart sank. It was a screenshot from a local social media group. Someone had posted about a recent occurrence involving her ex, accusing him of not paying child support. It didn't just upset her, it cut deep, a reminder of the chaotic dance they were both engaged in. "Is everything okay?" John asked, concern etched in his features. The warmth of his hand over hers was both comforting and grounding. But with swirling emotions, she couldn't find the words to explain. It's complicated," she finally managed, her fingers trembling slightly. "Do you want to talk about it?" He pressed gently, his voice low and filled with empathy. The openness in his eyes made her want to lean in, to share everything, but fear gripped at her. Instead, she tucked her phone away and took a breath. "No, it's about Leo. There's a lot happening with his dad, and I wish it all could be resolved peacefully." John's expression softened. "I can't imagine how hard that must be for you. And it feels like every time I think we're making progress, something else jumps in the way." She looked down at her coffee cup, her heart heavy. "I don't want this to affect us, but I can't ignore the reality that comes with it. Sarah, you are doing your best for Leo. You can't carry this weight alone. If you let me in, I want to help however I can." His words were like a lifeline thrown into the turbulent waters of her thoughts. They meant more than she could articulate, and for the first time, she allowed herself to envision a collaboration, a partnership that could foster safety amid the storm. "Thank you," she murmured, looking up to meet his eyes. "Just knowing you're here means a lot." But still, the uncertainty loomed. "It's hard to see where this is going, John. I'm terrified of things blowing up in our faces." "That's fair. I feel it too." John released her hand, the warmth lingering. "But I believe we can face whatever comes next together. I want to be a part of yours and Leo's lives if you'll let me." In that moment, something clicked deep inside Sarah. It wasn't just about safety, it was about building something real, something that encompassed the beauty and struggles of both their lives. With that thought, Sarah felt a swell of optimism intertwined with fear. Did they stand a chance to forge a new kind of family, one where they could lean on each other while navigating the trials they faced? What if, after the storms, they found themselves stronger together? As they finished dinner, the conversation began to flow again, but this time it felt different. The anxiety began to lift slightly, replaced by laughter and shared hopes for what tomorrow could bring. Never would have thought a casual meal would turn into such deep conversations, huh? John chuckled, moments later, a glint of mischief returning to his eyes. "Never in a million years." Sarah laughed, the tension in her chest finally lightening. As they stepped back outside into the cool evening air, Sarah took a moment to reflect. They walked side by side down the street, hearts feeling lighter. "Let's take some time to think things through," she suggested as they reached her car, pausing for a moment as the glow of streetlights illuminated them in soft light. "But I want to keep this connection alive. I'm willing to explore it if you are." John nodded, his smile radiating warmth. "Definitely. I'd like that very much." Just then, Sarah's phone buzzed again. Her ex had sent another message. It was a simple text, but it was laced with ambiguity. It read, "Can we talk about Leo? I need to know our options." This time, a stronger determination surged within her. "I'll handle it," Sarah said, her voice steady. "It may not be easy, but I will protect Leo at all costs. And as for us, we will figure out the rest together." They shared a glance, filled with unspoken promises and hope, amplifying an atmosphere of resilience amidst uncertainty. "Let us face tomorrow head-on," John replied, his grin wide and encouraging. With her heart full for the first time in a long while, Sarah felt an undeniable presence of courage wrapping around her. They had both weathered ugly storms before, but now maybe, just maybe, they could be each other's shelter as they continued to discover what their connection could truly become. As she drove away, Sarah felt a flicker of hope growing stronger within her. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but she wasn't alone anymore. With John by her side, it felt like they could take on anything together. It was the beginning of a true partnership, one where love intertwined with the complexities of life, where hope kissed the edges of reality. And that was enough. Now, more than ever, Sarah felt ready to face whatever was waiting for her in the morning. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm, because it makes a difference and helps us reach more hearts. Comment below your reactions and feelings about this ending and what you think is next for Sarah and John. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Don't wait not even one more second to share.